Hi, thank you so much for joining us. It is such a blessing to be together right now, even though I know things are pretty weird. My name is Megan Finnerty, and I'm with USA Today, and I am welcoming you to Coronavirus Conversations, a special live edition of Just the Facts. Right now, we all just watched the presidential press conference, and he covered a lot of things: the closure of northern and southern borders, cash assistance for families and individuals, the scarcity of tests, availability of masks, ventilators, and other protective equipment, and of course, an economic forecast for the nation. That conference was pretty intense and pretty combative at times. And to make sense of what just happened, we know that you need a minute. Our reporters at USA Today and across our network of more than 250 newsrooms also need a minute. Right this second, they're working to digest what was just said and what it means and turn that into thoughtful, comprehensive stories that can answer the questions you and your family need the most right now. What we're doing instead on this show, right this minute, is we're working to give you something that's more comprehensive and thoughtful based on questions you have been asking all week. Just the Facts Live right now is not a hot takes Q&A where we're going to be like talking across each other. Instead, we have 5 experts prepared to talk about questions you've been asking all week long. And so here's what we're doing. We're here to chat about money, community, health, and education, because those are the things you guys are asking me about all the time. You have submitted more than 3,000 questions. So before we get into this, though, I do want to say my name is Megan Finnerty. Like I said, I'm reporting from my house in Phoenix, Arizona. Like you, I'm home with my family. So if you hear anything, it might be my 5-month-old George, because I am a new first-time mom who has a little baby at home. Or you could see my husband, Vince. But with that, I'm going to bring up our experts because we want to be here for you. And we don't want to add to like panic or weirdness. We know that facts fight fear and context keeps us connected. So with that, I'm going to bring up our guest today. Our first guest, Ann Saker, is our colleague from the Cincinnati Enquirer who covers health. Ann, say hi. We're going to be talking to you first.
Hi, Megan. Good to see you.
Hey, Ann. Thanks for being on. I'm now going to bring up David Kender. David is with reviewed.com, which has been providing us with a lot of like practical and helpful tips as sort of consumers and parents right now. Thanks for being on, David.
Thank you.
Elise Toribio is a social mobile editor in North Jersey, where the situation is changing super quickly. Thanks for being on, Elise.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Lauren Saria is joining us in Phoenix, Arizona. She's the food, dining, and nightlife editor at AZ Central and the Arizona Republic. She'll be talking about how local restaurants are managing in this time. And lastly, hi, Lauren. Lastly, we'll be bringing up Erica Sagone. She is a distillery owner in Bloomington, Indiana, or co-owner with a group of people who've pivoted from just making spirits to now they are making hand sanitizer. So we'll hear from her as well. Thanks so much for being on today. Hi, everyone. So listen, that press conference was really intense. And we do know that we're not having like an exact hot take on any of this. Instead, we are going to get started by talking about your number one health question with Ann Saker from the Enquirer. But Ann, before we get into that, I just want to do a quick level set. You've been working from home in the state that was the first to close everything down with Governor Mike DeWine. Can you just talk for a second, like how do things feel for you personally?
I got out of the house today for the first time in 6 days. I actually took a walk and it felt great, but it has been eerily quiet in my little corner of Cincinnati, which is normally a bustling and busy place. So it's been fascinating to see how people understand on a fundamental level how dangerous the situation is now.
Well, that's good to hear that people are taking it super seriously. Your story specifically addressed what should a person do if they think they're infected. And I know that no one wants to be the worried well right now, but I think you had some really practical advice. So Ann, take it away.
Great. So the difficulty here is that there's nothing particularly special about the novel coronavirus in terms of symptoms. But here's what you do if you start feeling sick. The first thing you want to do is take a deep breath, stay calm. The second thing you want to do is take an inventory of your symptoms. The key symptoms here to be mindful are a fever over 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit, a dry cough, and shortness of breath. The next thing to do is you're going to call your doctor. If you are sick, don't go to the office, don't go to the ER, call the doctor and communicate to the doctor at that point what you need to do. Then you want to do not leave your house unless your doctor tells you to do so. And this is incredibly important to this whole idea of social distancing. Mm-hmm. Secondly, when you are talking to your doctor, tell the doctor everything, your travel history, everybody you've come in contact with in the previous 10 to 14 days, and just be smart about being upfront about that. Mm-hmm. The next thing you want to keep in mind is that you will eventually you may get tested, but you might not. Here in Ohio, we are reserving all tests for the sickest people and for healthcare workers.
Yeah, we're hearing that. We're hearing that across the country. Like, I know that's happening in New York and many other states. So that's really important for people to know that, like, even if you call your doctor and you go in, unless you're pretty gravely ill, you might not have, like, nothing might happen.
Our health state director here in Ohio 2 days ago told people, you're not going to get tested, but you need to assume that you are infected at this point. So
that's intense.
Stay home, treat it as if you have a bad case of the flu or a bad cold. And the interesting thing at this point is we don't know what infection means long-term.
Yep.
So that's going to be the next field of research that will open up once we get this under control. And the next thing, of course, is to isolate at home. If you are sick, stay in a separate bedroom. Use a separate bathroom if you can, and have one person take care of you.
Good to know. And thank you.
Be hard. Mm-hmm.
No, it's so intense. I know lots of people who are quarantining themselves in, like, just one kid's bedroom, or they're in the garage or the basement. And I know we have a lot to talk about, but I do want to ask you, what is the most surprising thing in your several weeks of covering this as a health reporter? What's kind of like staying with you?
I am fascinated by the fact that there seems to be enough science education in the population now that when our governor went to the podium a week and a half ago and declared a state of emergency and explained why, and said he was shutting down the schools and the businesses and restaurants and telling workers to stay home, and people did it.
Yeah. People
understood at a fundamental level, I may be well, and I may spend the next 2 to 4 weeks well, but we have, it seems, this instinctual impulse to protect the rest of our species. And that's what we're being asked to do right now.
Well, and that is reassuring. I'm glad you're pleasantly surprised by that. I am too. I appreciate that insight. And we're going to ask you to hang out with us and participate in the rest of the conversation. So thank you, first of all, so much for being on. Sorry about my hair. I am going to bring up our colleague, David Kender. He's the editor-in-chief of Reviewed, where they have published a story about, I know a lot of our viewers are dealing with right now. David, what do you do if you're not a teacher? I know this is happening right now in your home. Tell us a little bit about how things are going.
Yeah, suddenly millions of parents across the country have been thrust into the role of being a teacher. Mm-hmm. A few of them probably are teachers and they have a lot of expertise there. And there are, of course, plenty of parents that homeschool. And so they have a bit of an advantage, but the rest of us are just trying to catch up. So
you said that's you and your wife, right? You have a 5-year-old at home?
It is my wife and I, and hats off to my wife. She's been doing an admirable job. We published an article early this week about 9 things that parents should be doing, or not should be doing, because we want to be helpful and not too prescriptive here, that they can be doing to help support their child academically so that they don't fall behind with whatever pace of education that they were having in a normal classroom. We're going to boil that down to just 3 simple things here for this conversation.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so we'll take 9, bring it down to 3. The first is to come up with a plan. Children thrive on structure, and it's also going to help a parent figure out when they can catch their breath and maybe just find a few minutes of quiet time. There are lots of great resources where you can go and download one of those schedules, but what you can do is take that plan, write it down, or if you have a blackboard or a whiteboard, put it on the wall so that the child knows this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm going to be doing next. They know when they can let their guard down a little bit too and just run around crazy for a few minutes. Okay. The second is to use what's close at hand. It's a big, exciting world. I know my own child, my 5-year-old, loves learning about how things work. That can take place in the living room just as easily as it can the classroom. So we talk about, how does the remote control on the television work? How do rechargeable batteries work?
I don't know these answers myself, David. I would love to come over.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, because when you say close at hand, I know some people have yards and they're able to get out into it. Like right now I'm in Phoenix, it's beautiful. Like it's nice out. In March though, in the rest of the country, I know it's like still cold. So you're recommending like the kitchen as a science classroom and things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're more inclined towards the kitchen, baking is science, cooking is science. If it's warm enough where you are to start planting, this is a wonderful time to plant some seeds and watch those grow. You could start a butterfly garden. There's lots of things you can do regardless of your resources or space.
And then you're talking about getting artsy, right? Get creative, keep things fun.
Yes, you do want to mix it up, and a lot of parents bemoan the fact that there's not enough arts education in the classroom. Well, now suddenly the power is in your hands. So if you want to have an hour-long, messy decoupage session or something like that, now's your opportunity. You can have them involved with really any part of your day. If you can find a way to help them do your job. Sometimes I have my son help me. I'll write an email and he gets to click the send button and he is delighted with that.
Oh my gosh, David, I know you guys also talked about having a spirit day and like having kids dress differently. I know I'll bring her on later, but one of our guests, Erica, who's going to be on the show in just a second, I already saw her picture from Spirit Day. So we're going to come back to that in a minute. But thank you so much for talking us through these tips. They've been like, I can't imagine trying to figure out how to be a teacher on the fly right now. So
we're all in it together.
Thank you so much for this advice. It's thoughtful and it's fun and it's optimistic, and that's what people need right now. We have a jillion questions about work right now. I know for anybody who's not figuring out how to teach their kid at home, they're worrying about their job that they would have been at. So Elise Toribio from NorthJersey.com put together an explainer. And the answers for Elise, hi, thanks for being on.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. So you're working from home. How do things feel in North Jersey? I know your situation is moving really quickly.
It's very fluid. I'm at the end of week 2 of working from home, so it's getting kind of interesting. I'm sure my dog's happy to have me home, but all's well for now.
Okay, well, thank you for that positivity. I want to start, you had some really specific answers. What are options for people who need or want to stay home from work, but they're not like getting a lot of leadership from their management?
Yeah, so there are a few options. Say if your child is home from school, their school's shut down for a certain amount of time or an undetermined amount of time, you can take some time using paid sick leave. Luckily, that's a law that was passed by Governor Murphy here in New Jersey in 2018 that gives employees up to 40 hours of paid sick leave. If you're sick, you can take that time off as well. There's also family leave. So if somebody in your family's sick and you're caring for them, you can take some time under the family leave. If your job has had to lay you off, maybe cut a lot of your hours, there are some options to file for unemployment benefits. And if you happen to get sick at work and you got coronavirus from your workplace, you may be entitled to some workers' compensation as well.
That's really fascinating. And I know you said, like, if you have concerns, call the Department of Labor. What kind of help can they give you? Or is it more just like they can give you advice or?
Yeah, and I think it's if you are at work and you're seeing they're not following the proper guidelines, they're not practicing social distancing, they're not cleaning the way they should be, call the Department of Labor.
Awesome. So we're talking about what resources do employees have if your bosses aren't taking precautions. You're saying call the Department of Labor. The number one question we've been asked, though, is like, will I be fired if I'm just like too scared to go to work, or I don't think it's the right decision for me and my family?
Right. Right now, there's not a protections for people who aren't sick, who just are scared to go to work. But Governor Murphy has said in his briefings that if an employer doesn't let you work from home or has given you trouble, he wants to hear about it. So again, reach out to your Department of Labor. If your business is supposed to be closed at this point, and your business is operating as usual, sort of defying the orders, he advised that you contact local authorities at this point.
So I think what's really challenging about this right now, Elise, is that like it's really city to city and it's state to state, right? Like I live in Phoenix where non-essential businesses have been closed, but Scottsdale, which is just over like the city's touch, pretty much anything can stay open. That mayor is not. So we're really seeing conflicting reports from people depending on whether it's a decision at the mayoral level, the governor level, or I mean, I guess that's about, or counties.
Yeah, I mean, we had a county executive who had an order to basically shut down all retail, and the governor supersedes that authority. So that was walked back, but still people are confused. So if they heard one story and really haven't caught up with the other, they're not sure if their business should close, if they can still go to a store. So yeah.
Man, Elise, thank you so much for providing some of these answers and resources. I know it's really hard for us to be specific because everyone's questions are unique to their employer and their home and work situation.
Absolutely.
But I think your advice about like appeal to the highest authority and try to find like trusted facts for your region or city, that's really the best we can do right now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Definitely stay on though, because we're having more conversations as we continue to move on. Lauren Saria from Phoenix, Arizona. Lauren, so many of the places we go that makes life feel normal are local restaurants. And not only do they like make us feel better, but they're also our neighbors and our friends. So thank you for being willing to talk about that today. But first, how do things feel for you working from home?
You know, I'm hanging in there. I'm actually mid-moving, which is like potentially the worst timing I could have imagined, but we're making it work.
I love your positive attitude. So how can we support local restaurants while social distancing?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that people are talking about right now is obviously purchasing gift cards. I've talked to a lot of chefs who have made it really clear that, you know, that is one way where you can sort of immediately give them some income when they're not able to either do dine-in or potentially in some cases not able to do even delivery. So that is definitely kind of the easiest option. And then if your restaurants around you are able to do takeout and delivery, that is definitely a way that you can continue to support those businesses and those restaurants that you enjoy and want to be able to enjoy after all this is over. And then the last thing would be, or one of the last things is sort of purchasing merchandise. A lot of restaurants already had online stores where you could buy things like mugs and hoodies and, you know, hats and whatnot. So all of those things are also ways to continue helping them out. And then as we sort of move forward, you're seeing more and more restaurant owners and communities come together to set up emergency funds for their staff. So that's definitely something you can look into on restaurant social media. Sometimes staff are setting them up for each other. So look out for those. And that is a way that you can also kind of contribute to support these people through these closures.
Man, Lauren, these are great thoughts. I know I'm also seeing a lot, for our audiences, you mentioned social, like this is really a time to be, I mean, not that I'm like pushing you toward these things, but this seems to be a really big time when people are engaging on their phones on like Instagram or Facebook where their favorite restaurants are trying to put out information about what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we're trying to track every restaurant. As you mentioned earlier, Phoenix is the Metro Phoenix area is city by city as far as what restaurants can and can't do. So we're doing our best to sort of track what individual restaurants are doing as far as offering takeout, offering delivery. And we're doing most of that through social media just because things are happening, as you said, so quickly and it's such a fluid situation. So if you want to know about the restaurant around the corner, I would check their social media accounts.
Awesome. I did want to ask, you said, I'm kind of asking like either what's like especially clever that you've seen or interesting or surprising, like any sort of good news or things that other people should replicate?
Yeah, I think, you know, we've covered a couple stories here in Phoenix that are just really uplifting. We had a local restaurant group called Some Burros that was just kind of dropping food off at like hospitals and fire stations to support first responders, which was like a beautiful thing. And then yesterday we had a gentleman we spoke to who purchased 100 pizzas from his favorite pizza restaurant and sent them to homeless shelters. So that was kind of nice because he was able to both support a local restaurant and then also, you know, feed people who may not be able to have food otherwise. So we're definitely seeing, at least in the restaurant community and in the community in general, people come together over this, which is, you know, a really nice thing to be able to tell people about considering everything else going on.
Man, Lauren, thank you so much for that. Do stay on for just a second because we're going to keep talking to everybody. But I'm going to bring up Erica Sigone right now. She's Director of Communications in Cardinal Spirits in Bloomington, Indiana, where you guys have turned from just making gin to now making hand sanitizer for even hospitals. But first, I want to say, you're home. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm camped out on my bedroom floor right now, which is the only quiet spot in my house with my family home.
Awesome. Who's home with you today?
My two kids who are 5 and 3 and my husband.
So that's super intense with such little ones at home. So tell them hi and thanks for letting us work with you today. So talk to us about what's going on at Cardinal Spirits and how you're making hand sanitizer.
Yeah, so we have not always been in the hand sanitizer business. We make vodka, we make gin, we make rum, But what we have a lot of is high proof alcohol, and that's a very important ingredient in hand sanitizer. So this past Saturday, we thought, let's try to make this. We have a ton of high proof spirit. We mix it with hydrogen peroxide, glycerin, and water. We use the FDA guidelines in making our hand sanitizer. When it's finished, it's about 80% alcohol by volume, or ABV. So that's, again, within the FDA's guidelines. Probably by the end of today, we'll have made over 100 gallons of hand sanitizer. It's mostly gone to police departments, fire departments, first responders, and other healthcare organizations. That's sort of what we're prioritizing right now. And these are organizations that are reaching out directly to us and saying, hey, we saw in the news that you're making hand sanitizer. Can we drop by and get a 5-gallon bucket from you? We cannot get this through our normal channels, which is just surprising and a little frightening, to be honest.
Well, you said you're also sending it to, you mentioned like hospitals and other places like that. It's just that the supply chains are broken, or you guys just happen to be there, like you're right there and you're immediate. Are you delivering it, or are they coming by and just getting buckets? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so it's a mix of both. If they're local, they usually come by with a bucket, or we supply a bucket, but we are starting to ship out by the bucket. We just shipped out a 5-gallon bucket to New Jersey yesterday to some first responders who needed it. And again, these are they just can't get it through their normal like commercial supply channels. But we've also given it to homeless shelters here in Bloomington, Meals on Wheels, elderly care facilities, postal service. And we've got at the distillery, we have a self-service station set up so people can bring in their own small container and fill up. And, we're not selling any hand sanitizer right now. We're giving it away. We're asking for a donation to our employee fund to, help our crew who's normally tipped, just help them stay afloat.
Yeah, so I want to close part of this conversation with like, how are you staying in business? Like, what are some tips you're offering other companies with what you're doing in social media?
So on site at the distillery, we also have a tasting room and a bar and a restaurant, which is closed right now. Per Indiana state law, all dine-in has been suspended. So that's a big deal for us. And what we're doing instead is offering carry out. So we can sell bottles of our spirits. We're selling our canned cocktails, and we're selling bottles of freshly made cocktails. And so people can order online and then come and pick up at the distillery later on. And that's been going really well. Something that we've been doing is via social media, just asking or telling people what we need to sell every day and using numbers. We're saying we need to sell 30 bottles of spirits a day. We need to sell 12 packs of canned cocktails, and we need to sell 10 bottles of cocktails to go to stay in business. So we're just being transparent, and people seem to really love that, and they are showing up for us, and that's awesome.
Man, that is so like that level of specificity is like a real call to action for people. So, Erica, thank you so much for, first of all, like becoming such a resource to your community with a very needed product. I want to take you to Dave and go back to that conversation about Spirit Day. We've had a lot of comments in our live comment section. Tell me about like you two as parents. Like, do any of you have like a parenting hack? We're seeing some comments in the chat. Like, what are Spirit Day ideas?
Well, it's funny. If you go digging, what we found is there's a national day for everything. There's a national hot dog day. There's a cookie day. There's a chocolate chip cookie day, which is different from the other cookie day. You can incorporate those into silly games and activities for kids. And there are a lot of ways to draw math and reading and penmanship and all of those things that you might want to encourage now that they're out of the classroom. And it's just a nice hook to put it on.
Erica, what was your Spirit Day?
My Spirit Day. I don't know that we've done a Spirit Day, but I would suggest just like FaceTiming with friends. My kids are, they're young, they're 5 and they're 2.5. Earlier I said 3, and I don't know why I got my own kids' age wrong. But they're missing their friends too. My kids are really social, and I think just adults need some FaceTime or Zoom or whatever. But don't forget about your kids. Include them in that too. They want to say hi to their friends.
That is such good advice. You guys stay with me, everybody. We're also seeing some comments, Erica, some more comments on the hand sanitizer, about sort of how you guys are giving it to first responders and stuff like that. How did you find out? How are people getting a hold of you? Like, are they just calling you or messaging you live? And do you have advice for other organizations? People are asking, like, whether or not wineries can do it, or who knows what.
Yeah, so we are hearing from people literally in every way possible. People come in off the street. We're getting a lot of requests through social media, a lot through email. We actually put up a blog post on our website about how we made it and kind of the resources that we pulled from. Again, just like being transparent and honest, like we're not the only distillery making hand sanitizer. Yeah. If another distillery wants to jump into it, like check with your local distillery in your town where you live. They might be making it. But if you go to cardinalspirits.com on our blog, we have a post about how we did this. And, if you want to try it too, you can.
Awesome.
I just want to add on the topic of hand sanitizers, we have a story on USA Today right now about how to find hand sanitizer online if you're shopping online, which is hard to come by. We're updating that story up to 3 times a day and tracking across all different retailers, but making sure that we're not pointing people towards any place that might get price gouged also. And we have directions on how to make your own hand sanitizer at home, which is really not that difficult if you can get those ingredients as well.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much for that, Dave. I do appreciate you adding this. I want to bring in Ann Saker from Cincinnati. She's the health reporter. So Ann, pop on.
Hi. So I think the hand sanitizer is exceptionally important, but there is no better protection than warm water and soap for 20 seconds. That is the bottom line. I know hand sanitizer is, easy and you can carry it around with you, but honestly, if you just every time you think about it, to go wash your hands, and not even if you're in the bathroom or in the kitchen, just go somewhere and wash your hands and make sure not to touch your face, because I still touch my face all the time, which is ridiculous. But all I'm saying is that it's really important to keep things clean. Number one being hands.
Your hands. So. That's right. I want to ask everybody, we're almost getting ready to wrap up, but I do want to say, does anybody have a special hack or thing I'll share? My husband and I started ordering our groceries. We were ordering through major national distributors, like big, huge grocery chains, which is great. And I'm not saying anything against that, but we found a way to order some groceries through a local restaurant so that they keep that money and their staff stays busy. And they include fresh pastries and baked goods and things that make us feel a little bit better about life.
Yummy.
So, but you guys, we are going to close our segment today with a postcard. Every day we're trying to look at a place in America with a postcard from a place that is familiar to all of us, but today we see it in a new way. So this is a Florida beach where I know certainly I've been on spring break and family vacations, and probably a lot of our guests have too. But today the Florida governor's announced, the Florida governor and many, many mayors have been announcing that they've got to get spring breakers off their beaches. And this is true for Alabama, the Gulf Coast, and Florida. And so I just wanted to take a minute to ask anybody, we're kind of talking about this as today's big talker of where you see something that normally would be, I think really people are calling about taking a virus vacation. And now the governors and the mayors are please don't do it here. Have you guys seen these stories or been thinking about the beaches today?
We had a story in our paper today about a young man from Milford, Ohio, who apparently was interviewed on television a couple of days ago, who was talking about how he wasn't worried about the corona. He just wasn't going to get the corona. No way. It's spring break. Nothing happens on spring break that's bad. So
what is his spring break? That is not true to my experience.
This is the joy of youth, is feeling bulletproof. And that's kind of what we are seeing down there.
That's true. Lauren, you said you still had people having St. Patrick's Day parties last week?
Yeah. On Tuesday, we had a couple of bars here in Phoenix. Like we mentioned earlier, everything is very city by city. So while in some cities, bars were not open for St. Patrick's Day, we had a couple big ones still take place and people were there and wanted to drink green beer. So hope it was worth it, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out soon. Those photos were coming to us from our colleagues down in Florida. And so each week on this show, we're going to be kind of trying to bring you some insights about how really familiar places and familiar things have been changed by the coronavirus. And here's what we've got. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to say to everyone today who hopped on the show, thank you for being here. Thank you for offering your insights and your heart and your services to the, our audiences and your neighbors and friends. We really, really appreciate you being willing to put our community first and share your insights with them. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. We're just going to give everybody a wave and log off. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, check out these other videos from USA Today to stay up to date with all the latest news.